Jeff and Greg, I did talk to the students about the FE and the EIT exam today. And I also talked about the differences between whether, if you're a licensed civil engineer, there's a lot of legal work that you can't do and you have to be a licensed surveyor. And then everyone, I want to introduce you to Jeff and to Greg. They've been a part of our engineering program for a long time, and I want them to, how about you guys introduce yourselves and start from the beginning on your path, like how you got to where you are. Okay, and then talk. I also asked students, I asked Greg and Jeff to talk about some projects that they really enjoyed working on. And as Jeff and Greg, as you know, this is the surveying class. So all the students in this class are either interested in civil engineering or environmental engineering or ag and also construction. So who wants to go first? How about Jeff? We'll start with you.
Okay.
And
Well,
you're,
I
and you
started
guys
out,
are being recorded. Is that okay?
that's fine.
Okay.
It's fine. Yeah, I started out long ago, back in 1974. I went to Monterey Peninsula College, and I was really trying to figure out what I wanted to do as a profession. And my father always told me, find a profession that you love and you'll never have to work a day in your life. And so I took that to heart and took a bunch of different courses there and just fell in love with surveying. So I decided to go to Fresno State, transferred there in 77, graduated in 79 with a degree in surveying and photogrammetry, and then got a job here in Watsonville working for Midcoast Engineers. And I had taken what they called the LSIT, which is I think it's the FS now. I took that back when I was in Fresno before I graduated and passed that. And then in I believe it was 81, I took the test and got my license in 82. And I was doing a lot of engineering, civil engineering at Midcoast, and decided I would go ahead and go for my civil as well. And took what they called the EIT back then. It's now the FE, and was able to pass that. And then in 85 took the CE exam and got my license in 86. And in preparation for the civil engineering exam, I took a bunch of classes at Cabrillo to fill in the holes of courses that I didn't take at Fresno to prepare me. And it worked out really well, and I was able to pass that test, and I've really used that over the years as my profession. And I really enjoy surveying and civil engineering. It just seems to be my personality and aptitude fits really well with that. So, you know, I kind of feel like people come to me with puzzles. You know, they have a building, or they have they want to get from point A to point B, and they need a road designed, or they need to get, the water delivered from one area to another. And they pay me to solve that puzzle. And it's a lot of fun, and very rewarding. But one thing that I've noticed is that the product that we deliver to our clients looks the same as the product that engineers 200 years ago delivered to their clients. They're prints. They're printed differently now than they did way back when. They had blueprints back then. Now we have just essentially photocopies. And the way that they're drawn is a lot different now. We're all using CAD mostly. Way back when, it was all drawn on, vellum, or when I first started, the surveyor that I worked for actually had some old linen that he was using before he converted to Mylar. And we had to, for recorded maps, we had to draw in ink. which was, easy to spill and easy to smear. So you had to be really meticulous about drawing those things. But if you look at those old maps, they don't look any different than the ones that are being produced today. So the methodology and the tools that we use are different, but the product's the same. And if you look at, especially in civil engineering, when you get a set of plans that are drawn by a civil engineer, there's lines everywhere, and most people can't make heads or tails of what it means. But once you get trained in civil engineering, and if you have the aptitude, you can look at that flat piece of paper and see 3D. You don't need glasses, you don't need different colored lenses. You can just see the terrain from the contours, the existing and finished contours, and you can see cut and fill. And so the representation on the plans that we deliver look the same as they've always looked. We show plan views, we show section views, we've got profiles, we show, equations for lines as far as alignment with curves, and route surveying has been used for a long time. So it's interesting that the tools have been updated, but not the product. On my shelf back here, I've got an old Gunther's chain, which is what they used to measure distances with. And in fact, when I started, the surveyor told me, grab the 300-foot chain out of the truck. And I went back there to look for it, and I didn't see any chain, but it was actually just a steel tape. But he was using the old term chain, and it was common to use that term because that's what they used to measure distances with, was actual chains. And over time, we got distance meters. And so when I started, survey crews were usually 3 people. You had an instrument man, and you had a head chainman and a rear chainman. And that's what it took to get the job done. And then once we had distance meters, it dropped down to 2 persons. So you had 1 person on the instrument and 1 person on the reflector. And now you can do it all by yourself with robotic total stations and GPS. So you really only need 1 person, although a lot of guys will have 2 guys just to help with the work and for safety. But the tools have been changing, but we still draw maps the same way and still write descriptions that read the same way. And so the product hasn't really changed that much. As far as my decisions in how I got into civil engineering, land surveying, I kind of went around a different way than most people that have both licenses. I started out as a land surveyor and then became a civil engineer. A lot of dual license people start out as civil engineers, and then they get their land surveying license. And there's a whole lot of overlap between what a surveyor does and a civil engineer does. And in fact, if you get your civil engineering license, you can do everything that a land surveyor can do except boundary, which basically is you can't set property corners, you can't write legal descriptions, you can't prepare recorded maps, things of that nature that have to do with boundary. But all construction, staking, and topographic mapping, and a lot of the work that surveyors do, you can do with a civil engineer's license. So it's really handy to have both so that you can cover the boundary aspects of it as well. And yeah, that's mainly what I had going on. Did you have any questions? You're on mute, I think.
Let's go on to Greg's introduction, and then we'll ask questions. Thanks, Jeff.
Okay. Hi, Joanne. Thanks for having me again. Hey, Jeff. Good to see you. Haven't talked to you for a while either.
Oh, I should also say Greg taught the surveying lab at Cabrillo with me way back, or with Kelly.
With Kelly. Yeah.
Kelly.
Yeah, that was fun. I enjoyed that for sure. And it was neat to see actually one of the students go to work for Mike Bridgette for a long time. I think his name is Chad, redhead guy. But it's cool to see students move on into the field actually. So one special shout out to Jose and Dan Mays from the county. Thank you for being in Joanne's class. Awesome. There you are. I see your face, Daniel. Anyways, but like I said, my name is Greg Jones and I work at the County of Santa Cruz. And my story is kind of opposite of Jeff's, where I started in civil and went into surveying. And it's benefited me quite a bit, especially during the recession. Guys, excuse me, I need you guys to leave. So anyways, when I was in high school, I had no idea what I was going to do for a living. I didn't even know what physics was. I thought it was a study about the body. And so didn't have much guidance. And I went to Cabrillo, and Cabrillo kind of saved my life as far as heading me in the right direction. The one thing I knew I was really good at was math. So I kept on the track of math. And going through math classes, calculus, I saw all my friends were taking physics and chemistry. And I thought, wonder what are you guys doing for a major in life? And they said, oh, we're going into engineering. And I didn't know what engineering was, but I thought, well, I think I'll do that too. So I took the physics classes, chemistry, calculus, all that stuff. And then I hit statics. That was the first class in engineering that I took at Cabrillo. And I got an A in it. And I thought, wow, this is something I could really do. And I liked it a lot and I succeeded at it. So knowing at that time, this is my third year at Cabrillo, it took me 4 years to get through Cabrillo. The first year, I'd like to say that was the earthquake, so that didn't count. But third year, I'm starting on the track for engineering. And statics was what led me to civil engineering. Whereas electrical engineering, I was not very good at that. Computer engineering, no, I'm not good at. In fact, I couldn't complete a single program in Fortran that year without help from friends. And then I got through Cabrillo and transferred to Cal Poly down in San Luis Obispo. And I couldn't believe it that they'd take somebody like me, but I ended up there. And here I am on my track to civil engineering. And my first quarter there, I got Fs in my first two tests, dynamics and strength of materials. And I got my butt kicked. I knew I wasn't going to be a mechanical engineer. Of course, that's dynamics. I wasn't good at motion things for sure, but I knew I was good at strength of materials. So I decided I got to get together with a group of people. I can't do this myself. And I ended up getting B's in those classes that I got F's in. So that was a wide awakening. And I thought that was a great learning experience to keep going in life and school. Anyways, that is where I took my first class in surveying at Cal Poly. I didn't take surveying at Cabrillo because I was transferring. I didn't have time. And I hit the surveying class and I thought, wow, this is really neat. Just trigonometry is just plain fun to do. And that's what you do all the time in surveying. And I think just working from the old way of doing things with a chain and pacing and stuff, all the way up to using a total station. And you see the progression, and now it's going into different ways of measurement, whether it be scanning and GPS and all that stuff. But so I did really good in surveying, and I got an A in surveying, and in the next class in surveying, I got a B+. So I was pretty happy with that. Anyways, my first summer as an intern, I worked at Iflin Engineers because I lived in Santa Cruz, came home for the summer. Worked there part-time, worked at Long's drugstore in 41st Avenue for the rest of the time, pretty much was busy all summer long. And I started as an engineering help with good old Don Iflin, and rest in peace, Don. He's the first one that had me come in and do some engineering work. So he really mentored me in the first stages of civil engineering. He showed me how to do some structural work. I drew my first set of plans. They were hideous. They were just getting into AutoCAD. This was 1993 or 4, something like that. And then they said, hey, we need some help for 2 weeks before you go back to school in the surveying crew. And I said, sure, I'd love to do that. And so I went full time for my last 2 weeks, and I had a great time learning about surveying. And I just thought all the gadgets, it was neat being out in the field, being at a different place, 2-3 places sometimes in a day, different projects, and then seeing them start to be mapped on a piece of paper. That was really exciting to me. So anyways, I graduated from Cal Poly and took off for a month, went to Europe, came back, got a job really fast back at Iflin Engineers. And I started on CAD there, started working on AutoCAD, drawing plans, and going out in the field sometimes as a surveyor, just as a survey technician. And anyways, a lot of survey technicians needed right now. A lot of surveyors I talk to in town are looking for technicians. Thought I'd throw that out there while it's on my mind. So if you need a part-time job, I'd call up any of them. Anyways, so I was surveying and learning a lot about construction, and we did a lot of construction staking, about half and half boundary work, topo work, and then the construction work. So drawing on paper a design for a road or a building pad or anything like that. That's one thing, but when you see it being built in the real world, it helps you understand what it takes on the flip side. And I kind of like to say that surveyors are the interpreters between contractors who are building and the engineers and architects who are designing, because you got to know the language of both, really. And anyways, I just really liked being out there, and I had the energy. I just turned 50, so that doesn't mean I don't have much energy, but I'm definitely slower. Anyways, I think I just had this kind of spark ignite in me, and I decided to not waste what I had invested in college and finish up getting the license as a civil engineer, and then go full-time into surveying. So in 2000, I was actually working down in San Luis Obispo at the time, and I finished up my license as a civil engineer and went full-time into surveying. And I think it was the best decision for me personally in my career path. It was a pay cut. And the joke is I left Cannon Associates in San Luis Obispo making less than I started with. But the experience I had, you can't even, I would have, it's too much to remember. So many good memories of work, hard work. And when you go out and see what you've built and drive around town, this sense of accomplishment of seeing what you've done actually take form and being used by the world, by people, their home or the public in a road. There's this really neat, deep, satisfying sense that what you're doing in the world is really helping people out. So that's kind of where that went. So anyways, let's see, 2000 moved back up to Santa Cruz again and went back to work for Iflin Surveying. They had broken off from the engineering. So I worked for Iflin Surveying for 9 years. until the recession hit. And in 2007, I had finally obtained enough experience, and I'd taken the LSIT, like Jeff had mentioned. Waited 2 years, had 2 years of experience, enough to be signed up to be comfortable with, and I took the test. I failed the first time, and then I passed it in 2007. And then 2009, my boss came to me and everybody in the office and said, work is dried up. This is a good time to start looking for another job if you need to. And so I did. And I did get a job in San Francisco, a long, long ways from where I live. But the day before I moved there, I had applied to the county of Santa Cruz for civil engineering. The day before I moved up to work in San Francisco, I got a call asking, would I like to apply and interview for the civil engineering division? And I said, well, thank God I have this other license. I didn't ever think I'd go back to engineering again, but the recession was a spot where, man, if I didn't have those two licenses, I would have not gotten that job at the county of Santa Cruz. And back where I lived, they benefited by having two licenses from me, and I benefited by getting a job back at home. So I went to the county of Santa Cruz 2010, right at the start of the year there, and worked as an engineer, and started telling everybody what I could do. And I slowly molded myself into what I am now as the county surveyor we recreated the surveying section for the county of Santa Cruz. And I think it's benefited everybody by having a land surveyor reviewing the work of the surveyors that's coming in. So anyways, that's kind of my story. And here I am at 50, 25 years of working, and I'm really happy with the decisions I've made in life and in engineering and surveying. They are so complementary, really. I talk to engineers every day. I talk to myself. I'm an engineer and I do surveying. Sometimes I want to do engineering one day. Sometimes I want to do surveying one day. It's a cool thing to be able to do both things. It's kind of hard. To be good at both, and it takes a lot of work to be that way. So anyways, let's see. Oh, one thing I wanted to say, as the county surveyor, I see a lot of documents and surveys coming in from the other surveyors, my peers, and like Jeff Roper. I'll have to review their maps before they are recorded. And it's really neat as a surveyor when I have to go into some of the old files from the middle 1800s. And if this was up at UCSC, we would be using white gloves and it would be in an archive room, correct? Of course. Well, these are living documents to us. It's like looking on the bookshelf of something that was done 100 years ago, but we're going to use it right now today. So that's a neat thing about surveying too. A lot of old history that you're using in your daily work now. And then let's see. Joanne, you wanted me to talk about a project, is that right? Can you hear me?
Yeah, sorry. Matt.
Oh, okay.
Yes, yeah, please talk. I'd love to hear, I'd love for you to share a couple of, your favorite projects.
Yeah.
And you too, Jeff.
Okay.
And then Greg, if I remember correctly, your wife is a civil engineer too, right? Greg, is that right?
No, actually, not my wife. No, that would be the Trujillos. They are both civil engineers.
Okay, sorry about that. And then
Yeah,
Jeff, I'd like you to talk about Philip too. Okay. All right. So Greg,
just
you want to
finish
go and
up
talk
really
about
fast.
your projects?
Sure. Yeah, since I'm on a roll here. So I just listed out a few projects instead of one, and some neat things I've done. Over the years, I've worked on almost every school I've gone to since preschool. I've done something at those schools, and it's really neat to know. We surveyed the boundary and topographic survey of the preschool I went to. Soak Elementary, we did something at Soquel Elementary. New Brighton Middle School, I did a giant survey there. Cabrillo College, we laid out the steps in front of those two big buildings right at where Cabrillo College Drive comes in. And then at Cal Poly, laid out the entire loop road to the Performing Arts Center. You never know where you're going to end up when you are doing surveying work or engineering work. And the other neat things, working on the beach is really cool. Did a bunch of surveying south of Pismo Beach on the beach of Guadalupe, the dunes there. I just remember being out there watching the dolphins surf the waves as we're surveying. What kind, you get paid to do this? Another neat thing we did was these giant oil tanks down in Vandenberg area. We had to get inside one of those things and try to survey the floor of the inside of this giant oil tank. And the echoes were so crazy in there that we had to hold a radio next to our ears and faces, and we were like 5 feet apart from each other. We weren't even officially social distanced. That was neat. Working downtown San Francisco, that was crazy, doing a traverse around Market Street to Chinatown and back. Really cool, you know. Let's see, Bay Bridge approach, that was kind of neat, working a topographic survey of the approach before they built the new Bay Bridge. And one close to town that's kind of neat is the Tannery Center downtown, the old Tannery building. That was really neat watching them. We laid out a bunch of foundation piers, and watching them build that was really neat, to be able to not be involved in the design, but to be involved in watching the construction of it. So like I said earlier, you don't know if you're going to be on a job site for a month straight, or sometimes 3 or 4 jobs in one day. You might be driving around and you never know. Heck, I surveyed the house I grew up on and the house my mom and dad grew up on. I mean, my mom grew up on in Capitola. It's like, what? It's really neat. It's a really exciting career to take, and I hope you all consider heading into surveying, all of you who are watching this today. So thanks for having me, and thanks, Joanne, once again.
Thanks, Greg.
Yeah.
Can I do
Jeff,
a
you
quick
wanna-
shout out for, just wanted to mention, I think Greg has an award for the, what is it, preservation of monument perpetuation or something like that.
Yeah. Thanks, Dan.
It's
The county.
but yeah, he's done a really great job of preserving all of these monuments, which are an important part of, you know, these historical
Yeah.
documents and everything that we use still today. And
Mhm.
it's one way that me and Casey, my boss, who's also a student of Joanne's, has worked with Greg, because, you know, we go through and do all our road projects, and it's easy to just destroy these monuments and you just lose them and then they're gone.
Yep.
You know, not paying attention. So anyway,
Thanks, Dan.
thank you.
Yeah, thanks for interjecting, Dan. Okay, Jeff, would you tell us about some projects you really enjoyed and then talk about Phil?
Sure. Yeah, I wanted to agree with Greg on the satisfaction of seeing your project built. And I think it's really important to, as an engineer, go out to the project and watch the construction, because a lot of times as engineers, it may be easy to just sit in your office and do your design and send off your plans, and don't interface with the contractor to see whether there's issues with that design. You know, if you go to the site and you talk to the contractor, they have some really good ideas that you may not be aware of on ways of solving problems that you could throw in your toolkit. So that's really important. And I also wanted to say that one thing about civil engineering, most people don't, after the project is built and they're using it, whether they're driving down the road or they're flushing a toilet or they're getting water out of a faucet, people don't notice civil engineering. at least good civil engineering, because they're just, it all works well, but they definitely notice bad civil engineering. So if you're going down the road and all of a sudden there's a big dip in the road and you almost get thrown out of the car, that's bad civil engineering. But if it's nice and smooth, you don't notice it. So that's an interesting point that somebody told me once. As far as projects, I've done a whole lot of projects over the years, mostly smaller projects, not real huge projects. And I enjoy them all, but one that was really interesting was they needed to replace the trestle for the railroad line, the old Southern Pacific Railroad line that goes between Watsonville and Davenport. The trestle was there at La Selva Beach. And we went out and did some mapping around there for them to bring in a huge crane to bring the pieces and set them together. And when we went out to survey the thing, we were looking up at the old trestle and you could see through the steel. It was so rusty, and it was built, I don't know, 150 years, 200 years ago. But there were straps that were supposed to be diagonal straps that had broken loose and were so thin they were blowing in the breeze. And just months before, they had loaded trains going over the top of it. I don't know how they ever signed that thing off as being safe, but they tore the whole thing down and they brought in new pieces and put it together. But it was really interesting to see the huge crane that they brought in and what it took to build this structure. A lot of specialized structural engineering. And one thing about structural engineering, usually for the term to use the license structural engineer, you need to become a civil engineer first. And then you go into structural, and you need that for most large projects like hospitals, schools, bridges, things of that nature. But yeah, that was an interesting project that I worked on a few years back. But yeah, civil engineering and land surveying is kind of in my family now. My sister is a civil engineer, and she went to Fresno State as well. And she kind of went a different way. She worked for Caltrans. She worked for, I believe, PG&E for a while. And now she's working, and has been for probably the last 30 years, she's working for FEMA. And she gets sent off to all these exotic places after disasters, fires, hurricanes, earthquakes, things of that nature. She kind of goes to the places and gives these buildings their last rites and estimates what it's going to take to get them rebuilt, and authorizes the expenditure of FEMA funds for rebuilding. So there's, with engineering and surveying, there's all kinds of different ways you can go, and different facets. She worked for me for a while at Midcoast and didn't really like the design aspect of it as much as she really enjoyed the inspection part. So she kind of went into that realm. And then my son worked for me surveying and drawing, civil engineering, and went to Cabrillo, went through that course, and then went up to Chico, got his bachelor's degree up there. And now he's working for Caltrans surveying. He really enjoys the surveying, and working towards getting his licenses. And he'd like to eventually be dual licensed. And so he's doing really good. He's still living here in Watsonville, and is getting married next year. So it's kind of in the family now. I don't know how many more engineers or surveyors we'll have in the family, but I've got a grandson now, so we'll see.
Mhm. Hey, Jeff, would you talk about why you chose to own your own company and what that's been like and the benefits? And Greg, could you talk about the benefits of working for the county?
Sure. I think a lot of it has to do with personality because there's a lot of engineers and surveyors that work for companies, and you know I ask them, well, why don't you go into private practice? And they just really have no interest in that, and because it takes a little bit, it takes more of your time to deal with running a company, dealing with all the finances and everything. And if you're just kind of looking for an 8 to 5, you're probably best to work for somebody else. But I'm kind of a control freak. I need to have control over what's going on, and by owning your own company, you get to pick and choose what kind of jobs you work on, what you're interested in. You can turn down work. You don't need to do every job that comes in the door. And then, you know, having the dual license really helped out a lot for, say, when times got slow. I went out in the field. I was out surveying in the field, whereas right now I'm so busy with civil engineering, I use another survey crew to do my field work for me. So that was a good buffer. But I really like having my own firm in that there's the control of what hours you work, what jobs you take, and right now I remodeled an office right next to my house, so my commute, I just walk across the lawn to get to work, and so it's pretty nice. And I found that it used to be you had to have a whole team of people to run a civil engineering firm. You needed drafters, you needed a survey crew, you needed equipment, and nowadays with computers, I'm a one-man operation. I do have survey equipment, so if I need to go out and survey by myself, I can. I've got my plotter, my computer, and that's about all you really need. And an internet connection. I find today the product that we deliver is PDF. Everybody just wants PDF, and occasionally you'll get a consultant that would like to have the drawing file so that you can correlate the designs, but mostly it's PDF. And a lot of my clients I never even meet. You're always just working by phone or email, even text, Zoom, and especially after the pandemic, there's a lot less need to go to meet the person. I do like to go to the job site when I start the project with the client and the survey crew, and get all the criteria at one time as to what the client's expectations are, and that way we can also determine what needs to be mapped and make sure we don't have to go back out a second time and spend more time in the field. But yeah, I really like having my own firm, and but I think it depends on your personality. There's a lot of people that would be the last thing that they would want to have the responsibility for. I don't find it that difficult, but it's just another layer that you have to take on.
Thanks, Jeff. And Greg, would you mention the benefits of working for the county? What do you enjoy?
Sure, yeah. I actually, half of my career I've worked in private world and the other half at the county. So I have a well-rounded ness of how it is on both sides. So the first 12 years of my career working as a technician, and then as a project manager, Yeah, totally rewarding. Uh, and at surveying, you can't really work at night outside. So you're kind of limited to the daylight hours. Summertime, you might be out later. I did a lot of proposals later on in that kind of career, and I didn't do as much billing and so forth. And I wasn't interested in running a business. Um, I didn't mind doing proposals and stuff like that, but I like the work. I like doing the physical work for surveying out in the field, drawing it up on AutoCAD, producing a map. You go give that to the client, and I'll take my paycheck. That's the way I like it. And then I heard a lot of people talking about how the county is so lazy, all those people there. And I think I'll go find out that for myself. So when the time came, I took the job at the county, and sure, it was kind of boring at first. Let me tell you, to be honest. But as time goes by, working for an agency, and luckily County Santa Cruz is pretty good at letting people grow into where they want to go. And so it's really nice to have that kind of freedom. I do like working with a lot of people. I'm more social and so forth. So working at the county, so many different divisions come in, and I'm not working for doing work for private work. Different divisions of the county, whether that be like working on a county building or doing something for parks and recreation. Sometimes I'll give some opinions for different agencies in different areas of the county, like the city or the RTC, running the railroads. Sometimes people will call me from private, a homeowner, asking me about how do I figure out where my property line is, and I'll kind of finesse them a little bit and then guide them to a few surveyors. That gives me a lot of pleasure, just being able to help the public. And that's when you work at the county, helping the public is a big satisfying part of the job. And then you get well rewarded for being there for a long time. After 15 years, the pension starts building up. There's not too many pensions left out there. So that's kind of nice. That's kind of held me there. Recently, I've had an opportunity actually to go back into private. I've had a few people ask me to partner up with them, and almost did. But I thought, if you got something good, stay with it. So maybe sometime later on, after the kids grow up, I'll go work back in the private world and so forth. But I'm pretty happy at the county. I was really happy in private. You can be happy in both. And I encourage people to move around and just get as many experiences as you can. So that's what I have to say about that.
Craig and Jeff, like, so much information. Thanks. So these guys took a quiz at 6, and then I started teaching at 6:30. You guys came on. So what I'd like to do now, and and Lynn, you saw Lynn Kovac is with us, and Hans Hasselbach will be joining us too to talk about the surveying world. So students, Jeff and Greg are here, and they'll be here for maybe another 10 minutes or so. So if you have questions for them, otherwise, if you feel like you really need to take a break right now, take a break, but be back by 8. Okay. Okay, so who has a question for Jeff or Greg? I always have tons of questions. So Jeff, you're not retired yet, right?
No, I should be, but I'm having too much fun. I just turned 65 this month, and my wife keeps asking me, "Why don't you retire?" But I think what I'm probably going to do is just start cutting down on my hours, and now I'm still working 40 hours a week, but I think I'll probably just start taking more trips and taking on less work. because you know, I don't really need to keep working, but I don't know what I would do with myself if I gave up civil engineering and land surveying totally, because it's a part of my life. It's a part of who I am, and I really enjoy it. So I can't. I don't know if I'll ever totally retire.
Yeah, yeah, I hear you. And then Greg, when I guess it was a couple of years ago, it was right before COVID, I came into the county building, into the engineer. I was looking for, I think, Kalika at the time. And I was
Yeah.
just so surprised at how many engineers you have there who went through Cabrillo's program. I was like so impressed.
Yeah,
So great.
I'll tell you, I think to people that grow up here and go to Cabrillo are the ones that are going to stay, because it's so expensive. As everybody knows, you got to have some crazy job in technology or have inherited something to live here. The people that seem to stay are people from Cabrillo, that have grown up here because we love it here. Our family's here. And so if you've grown up here and you go to Cabrillo and you want to stay here, come apply at the county. There's a bunch of jobs on there right now for engineers. So
And how
Does
about
it what?
for interns too? Are you hiring interns right now, Greg?
You know what? If you get a list, Joanne, send it over and I will start circulating it. There's never really an opening just for interns, but yes, I've talked to a few people, and Kalika just took a job up in Davis. You know, Kalika was awesome, Cabrillo College grad. We've a few engineers have moved on, some retired, and we need help. So I think we could probably get some of your students down here.
Okay.
Yeah, let's get a list to me. Does
Okay.
any student have a question about getting poison oak, ticks, sunburn, dodging traffic? That's the fun part of surveying. Oh, you know, working out in the field, you just get it all after a while, and it teaches you to just put up and shut up. But in the end, you don't remember that stuff as much. Like, I'm sure Jeff driving down the street, seeing all the projects he worked on over the years, its sense of accomplishment is amazing. So, all right.
Okay. Do you guys have any questions for Jeff and Greg, or no? Okay. All right. Well, you guys, thank you so much for coming and joining us.
Thanks
And
for having us.
this is kind of nice. It's a little more convenient to like just zoom in with us rather than coming to Cabrillo.
Yeah, I think
Sure, yeah.
Zoom is going to take over a lot of meetings. I know it's taken over a lot of the meetings that I used to have with clients, and you know, you can get your whole team together real easily on Zoom and get the problem solved and move forward without people having to drive for hours.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're
And
welcome. It was a privilege. Thanks, Joanne, for having us.
yeah, Greg, I'll advertise on about if any civil engineering students are interested in positions, and then I'll give them questions like, do they have AutoCAD background? Did they take surveying? Have they taken graphics? Things like that. So you know
Sure.
what skill sets they've had.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, sounds great. Oh, and then also when they're planning on transferring too, so you know timing.
Sure.
Okay, well, thanks, Jeff and Greg. See ya.
Thank you.